Greetings and welcome to another episode of Pop's Collection, where we dissect and reflect on a movie or TV show from my Pop's Collection. I'm Ron Tweedy, joining me is Pops, and today we're going to be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Another creative title, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I guess we could almost call it a reboot of Spider-Man 2, except different villains. Yeah, I know. I'm giving a reach out there. This was released May 2nd, 2014, which pretty close to Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, it would probably coincide with that.
Yeah, because that's usually when it happens, right?
Yeah.
Now, this one had a little bit higher budget than the previous film, which I think it might have had to do with the star names that they added to this particular movie. It did gross less. It grossed just almost 710 million, but really less than the last one. But I did like some parts of it. I thought this movie actually moved around quite a lot, which I think it made it less dead spots, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, I was trying to chronologically write down things that I wanted to talk about, and then I'd lay it out, and then I'd oh, wait a minute, I got to draw an arrow because that happened before this thing. And how did you feel about it?
Well, I think that's actually a good explanation about the film, because I think that there are too many things going on in too many different directions for it to be a really solid, cohesive movie. The special effects, the actors, the performances, all were great. But the fact is that just a lot of stuff going on at once, and there's too much, I think, to keep track of in the film. So,
right. Well, this one, unlike the first one that I chose to watch it twice because I enjoyed that. The second one, I had to watch it twice so I could get things kind of straight in my mind, what I wanted to talk about, and say, wait a minute, did this happen? When did this happen?
Right.
So it was for different reasons. I do have to say that I did enjoy getting more of their explanation of Richard and Mary Parker's demise, and also why Spider-Man was Spider-Man and didn't turn into the lizard like the lizard guy, the doctor in the first movie,
Yeah, and I think we did talk about that a little bit last week, about how why is there multiple Spider-Men if those spiders were in long-term development, and there was an actual explanation, which was unexpected, but I appreciate the them trying to define the boundaries of their story. I think that's actually that was good on them to do it that way.
Yes.
But yeah, before we jump into too much of the movie itself, we can maybe take a look at some of the source material and
good.
Talk about,
thank you.
The couple characters that we got introduced to in this one. So obviously the first one I thought of us doing is talking about Max Dillon / Electro. In this one, you can definitely tell he looks nothing like his movie counterpart.
No, I wonder, did you get any other visions of him? Any other?
No, I didn't at this point, but this one's obviously a classic.
Without a doubt.
Steve Ditko / Stan Lee creation.
Yes.
And obviously this one has no real ties to Oscorp. It's more about this guy who was a lineman gets electrified, and now he uses his powers to rob banks and stuff like that. It's a very typical superhero plot from the beginning. So it's not like it's a this tangled web of Oscorp's tentacles extending far around Peter's world. So that's a big departure, but obviously not surprising given the the story that they wanted to tell. But
Right. This was the same director as did the first Amazing Spider-Man.
yeah,
And so I think he basically it's a continuation of the
yeah,
first story.
right,
What I did find interesting, the way they chose to use Oscorp as a company that did a lot of animal experiments.
sure,
You know,
yeah,
I did think it was kind of neat when we talk about Max Dillon,
yeah,
that he was working in an area that was trying to get electricity with using animals, using electric eels,
right,
which I thought it was kind of comical, you know, in some ways, but it was a good explanation. One thing I do have to say that I really thought that their depiction of Electro was pretty cool.
yeah. I
You
agree.
know, I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Um, More so than, although the ultimate version of it is a little similar,
mm-hmm.
but I like this version better than that. But before we got to Electro, you forgot to talk about Alexei.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's another one. The reason why I didn't do it right away is because the first appearance of Max Dillon Electro is Spider-Man number 9, which is very early in the run. So he's the earlier one, but we didn't get the Rhino till much
Till
not a
number
little bit later.
41.
Exactly, and we have a different artist. This is John Romita Sr.
Yes.
As if you couldn't tell, and so obviously very similar to the Rhino in this one, part of the Russian mafia, and obviously it's a little bit different in that there's the looming Soviet Union, the Red Menace undertones in this comic, as opposed to the Russian uh, things happening in the 2000s. It's a little bit of a different animal. So,
Right. They were stealing
yeah,
radioactive isotopes from
yeah,
Oscorp.
right, right. So anyway, you got that. But then I think the big thing we need to talk about is the one of the big Marvel events that I wasn't introduced to until the cards came out, and this was Series 3, where you have the death of Gwen Stacy. This is one of the, I think, big moments in Marvel history here. So that was my first introduction of that, and that doesn't actually end up happening until Amazing Spider-Man 121 and 122, as the back of the card talks about. And so I've got a couple of panels from that there. You can see, like the movie, Green Goblin is responsible. Ultimately, he's fighting on top of a bridge, and just like in the movie, he thinks he rescues her, but instead the impact ends up snapping her neck, and she ends up dying. Very similar to that. And so you have this iconic splash page at the very end of issue 121, where he's holding Gwen Stacy in his arms, and he's swearing revenge to the Green Goblin, who he didn't know at the time, I don't think, was Norman Osborn. So
Right. Which and they classed Harry in this movie
right,
as the Green Goblin,
yep.
where it really in the comics he would be the Hobgoblin, right?
No, Harry does take the mantle of Green Goblin eventually, which is kind of a surprise to him because at the time he and Harry were roommates, and he finds out that he knows that Norman Osborn has been killed, and someone else is taking up the mantle of Green Goblin. He has no idea who it is, and ends up being his best friend and roommate Harry at the time. So
Right, in the comics.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes. Okay. Well, I thought that it was like I said, it was so scattered around that it first time tough to follow a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Well,
I
I think
mean,
the big thing for me that took me out of it was uh, the introduction of Harry as a character and Norman, less so Norman, but the fact is, like, there's this they were best friends, but he got sent off to boarding school, and so like they had to kind of reestablish their friendship that they're supposed to have had for a very long time. And to me, it's like, I don't know, that it wasn't very believable to me. Unlike
no,
unlike unlike the Raimi version, where it's very apparent, right off the bat, that James Franco and Tobey Maguire, that you could definitely tell they were best buds, but
oh yes,
not so
for
much in this
because
case.
it went through more than one movie. You know, they were able to share that
Yeah,
where they went to school together in that one,
right,
whereas this one he gets shipped off to boarding school.
right.
And the guy that they got to play Norman Osborn,
Yeah,
he is a good actor. You know, everybody in this film is good actors, but
yeah,
I think that it struggles maybe from the writing, possibly.
sure.
Um, which they have Alistair Smythe in this, which is the gentleman that played the doctor with the glasses
Yeah.
at Ravenscroft.
Hmm.
Uh, he actually, that was B.J. Novak.
No,
I don't
BJ
know if you.
Novak wasn't him. BJ Novak was the boss of Max Dillon. He wasn't at Ravencroft.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. I'm sorry, but B.J. Novak on he wrote, for The Office,
Right.
and so he wrote some really good stuff there that he should have. He was there. Hey,
It's different. I don't agree with that. This is a different genre completely. Writing for a mockumentary is different than writing for an action adventure movie.
Well, that is true, but I mean, he had experience as a writer, so, but
I don't know.
I, I'm just saying he could have helped a little bit. Yeah, he was, yeah, that's Alistair Smythe, right? Which actually in the comics is a bad guy.
Right. Which
So,
I wouldn't be surprised if we see that character return in the Morbius film coming up.
oh, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, although that's one you're not going to want to go see in the theater, right? Or do you?
I haven't been convinced that it would be worth seeing, but
No. Well, we'll get into that at another time. But uh, I like the first part where we get with Mary and Richard in the plane.
yeah,
That so was shades of Goldfinger. You know,
I guess.
well, kind of. I'm just saying you had a plane scene where he Bond shot a hole through the window, and the bad guy flew out the
Okay.
window.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
all right.
Yep.
I mean, just that was one of my issues that been there, done that, seen that. Then the next thing that really was crazy that also kind of connected that story was Roosevelt,
Mm-hmm.
in the subway.
Yeah.
And then that kind of reminded me a little bit of Ninja Turtles,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
the number three, your favorite one, you
Okay.
know, just the subway part of it, having that thing come up out of the ground. It's like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that was even a real thing. I mean, he did have his own car, I guess,
Yeah.
but did it come out of the ground like that? I don't know.
I don't know.
It was really hunky, you know.
Yeah.
But and then the next thing that I wanted to talk about is his relationship with Gwen.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of he sees Captain Stacy every time he goes out,
Right.
and he promised that he wasn't gonna have a relationship with her
Right.
or bring her in, and then he does, and then he doesn't, and he does, and he doesn't.
Right.
Which they really didn't develop any of that. They just all of a sudden at the graduate after the graduation meet for dinner, and she's, well, I break up with you,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so we got that. It's like I said, it got too scattered around.
Well, I think that's appropriate because, we have to remember that these are a couple of teenagers and, to have a immaturity about them, how navigating relationships, I think is totally appropriate. It's just a matter of, that didn't bother me. I thought that was handled fine. I didn't have an issue with it. I will
Okay.
say that Emma Stone's performance as Gwen Stacy, I think she is the standard. Which I will judge other Gwen Stacy's. I think she's actually like the best Gwen Stacy. She looks just like her in the from like
Oh yes,
Ditko's
from the
pages.
comics.
I mean, like it's a great. It's yeah. I mean, they did an amazing job with the makeup and the styling of her hair and her make. Everything was just, I think, perfect. So I don't know. To me, I think that was, I think, one of the highlights of the film is her performance as Gwen Stacy.
Right. And what did you think about his performance as Spider-Man this time around?
It's one of those things where I have to remember, like, I mean, Andrew Garfield is the same age as I am, born the same year, and so I'm trying to remember what I was doing in 2014. It wasn't graduating high school, that's for sure.
No, no.
Um, so there's that, like, because like sometimes he will portray Peter Parker, who is late teens, particularly when interacting with Gwen, and then the whole subplot of rediscovering his dad's secret thing and whatnot is not something a teenager would do. I think someone older would end up doing that. It really gave me vibes of Superman's Fortress of Solitude. um that seems to me like an older Peter would be doing that.
Right. Well, kind of the story is that Clark's out of high school
Yeah.
when he finds the fortress. So he's kind of in the same age that Garth Andrews trying to portray.
I don't think so. Not in, at least not in Man of Steel. Man of Steel, he's older.
That's true. That's true, which I still find him to be the version I like the most
Really,
as
Henry
far
Cavill.
as, yeah, yeah, I do.
I agree with you. I'm just surprised that you're not a Christopher Reeve person.
Well, I like Christopher Reeves, but he's more a comic book uh, type. Boy Next Door
Mm-hmm.
was his version,
Sure.
where Man of Steel, it just took it down a different path,
Oh yeah, very much different.
which I think is probably the right path.
Okay.
You know, I know that we got the other story in the comics, with the Boy Next Door type thing, but
Sure.
this, the Man of Steel seemed to be more of a reality type version,
Mm-hmm.
I thought.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But
But we're not talking about
on that
Superman.
case, this is not a reality version of Peter Parker.
In some ways, I think it was, but in other ways, I don't know. Like I said, I think if they changed it to where they were maybe 5 years older, it probably would have been a better film. But um, yeah.
Yeah, and then for that whole thing with Oscorp and the betrayal
Yeah.
of the executives,
Yeah.
you know, all that stuff was just like so way out there. Then to blame Harry and try to,
Yeah. I mean,
take over the.
I,
Does
I
that sound like a reality?
oh, I mean, that was basically what happened in The Dark Knight Rises, right? It that had lots of callbacks to that and the Dark Knight. With Bruce Wayne kind of getting ousted by his own company, and we see that with Oliver Queen in the Arrowverse. That plot line happens all the time, and I'm sure, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that one. It's just, in fact, actually, I think that was the entire plot of the first season of Iron Fist. Now I think about it. So yeah, so that happens all the time. So, yeah.
So you were good with that.
That was fine. To me, not having either of the Osborns actually have a real presence in the first Spider-Man movie is kind of jarring to have them, have a much
all
more
of a
pronounced...
sudden show up, especially since Connor's worked for Oscorp,
mm-hmm.
and Gwen Stacy worked for Oscorp,
right?
And yet you didn't see him
right
at all in the first movie. That's true,
right? So
and then try to saturate it in the second.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what did you think about their depiction of New York? As far as the buildings and the big electro bash.
Yeah, I mean that part. I think the first interaction with Peter and Max, where in Times Square, I thought that was done really well.
Right, but then after that,
yeah, I mean
their next depiction, it just didn't.
Well, the big
I don't know.
The final battle's like on Power Grid, so you're not really expecting it to be in the middle of New York. So I'm fine with that. I mean, I think it was definitely a memorable fight scene, and it was a memorable way they put that all together. So I thought that was done fine.
Okay, and then Harry's version of Green Goblin, you like that?
Yeah. Not super much.
Thank you.
Willem Dafoe's, and Sam Raimi's vision of the Green Goblin, I think, is the standard, and even Harry's version of the Goblin in Spider-Man 3 was better than this one. So,
I thank you very much, because that just took me so aback.
Yeah.
Now I do have to say that Giamatti, he is a great character actor,
Yeah.
I mean, to play a Russian, like he did, and I have to say that his makeup was good.
Yeah, it's fine.
It was. I loved it, and I did kind of love the depiction of the Rhino too. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I get the reason why they went that direction. It's fine.
I would say, shades of Transformers almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see that.
But that was cool. The little kid at the end and facing the Rhino, that was like
that was cool.
Wow.
I liked it. I think that was well done. That was well done.
Well, there were a few things that were well done in here.
Yeah.
I thought for the majority, other than the Goblin costume, I thought it was done really good.
Yeah, I think, and that is kind of the challenge that they set up for themselves, is that, I do agree that the right choice for them was to do the death of Gwen Stacy as the big, plot point that happens here. And I do agree that the you can't do it justice without Green Goblin being the one responsible. Like if they had Electro responsible for the death of Gwen Stacy, it wouldn't be the same.
No,
so
different.
I understand they had to do that. The problem is that when you have to spend so much time setting all of that up, it becomes a distraction. And then adding in the subplot with Peter's parents and the Roosevelt station, and then adding Electro and his whole thing, and then adding on top of that Rhino and his thing. And so it's like all of those things together make it a convoluted mess. I think you could have made these into 2 separate movies, and then that way you'd have Amazing Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. And I think if you focused on Harry and Death of Gwen Stacy in Act 2, and then in Act 3 Electro and Rhino, that would have been, I think, a better choice. In fact, there's any amateur editors out there that make that would make that happen, that would be interesting to see a cut making Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 2 and 3.
That would be interesting, like you said, definitely. I think that that's definitely one of the things that the movie suffered from going to so many things. Because let's face it, they had to develop uh, Peter and Gwen's relationship a lot deeper, so the depth
Yeah,
of Gwen Stacy becomes more,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. And even the introduction to Mary Jane Watson would have been actually, I think, helpful to pad that out for
Right.
Act Two.
Well, I have to say that they did they did have cast someone to be Mary Jane,
Okay,
and they actually did some scenes with Mary Jane that got cut out on the cutting floor. So
interesting.
she never got to be in the movie, and she didn't get credit for anything. So
Yeah, and I will say that they did introduce another one of Spider-Man's love interests in that Felicia Hardy from
oh yes,
as the assistant to Norman Osborn, who in the comics becomes Black Cat. So that's
yes, yes,
that was interesting.
yes, and they just called her Felicia in the movie.
Right, right. Obviously, like
But
how many women in Spider-Verse are named Felicia? Right.
that's true.
That's the
That
reason
is
why I
true.
made that connection right away. So
Oh yeah, it was like light bulb, So
yeah. So they instead of even going down the MJ route, they could have introduced Felicia and then have a possible love triangle thing happen there. They could have done
right.
all that, but didn't work out that way.
No, and we never got to see, the Black Cat origin. So
Yeah, and the other thing, missing from both of these movies that we didn't really talk about is that, J. Jonah Jameson doesn't make an in-person appearance at all, which is
which he called and he offered his services,
right. Yeah, I know.
and they said nope. I mean, you get mention of his name, but that's it. Yeah, so that would have definitely helped this movie along too.
Well, I don't know about that. I think, like I said, they'd have to take out some other things in order to add in Jameson because he's technically another villain for Spider-Man. So
Technically,
yeah,
or villain recruiter, either way you look at it. But see, we talked about the scenery, we talked about the costumes.
yeah,
The CG was, I think, done pretty well
yeah. Agreed.
through most of it.
Yeah, I'd say particularly the CG around Electro and his character was
Oh yes,
very good.
and Jamie Foxx's acting was like,
Yeah,
well, like I said, everybody did a great job
agreed.
of their acting, but I think the script uh, was where it all suffered and probably caused it not to be an Amazing Spider-Man 3, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then again, like you said, Andrew was getting up there in age too.
He was, yeah. And unless you're willing to go, older Peter Parker, which I still would like to see eventually, you're not going to be able to have these actors portray him for so long because of the aging thing, because he's a teenager,
Well, let's say we've already gotten an age Peter Parker, but it was in the Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah, that's right.
In the animated version.
That's right. Yep.
So we did get which was really well. And I understand there's another version of that coming out.
Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel. Yeah.
Yeah. So that I'm interested to see in the theater, I think.
We'll definitely do that.
Okay. That one would be a good one.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
All right. Any other comments or things that you want to talk about?
I don't know. Again, I'm kind of conflicted with how the Gwen Stacy arc ended up because I understand Peter's motivation for wanting to honor the commitment that he made to his father, to her father, sorry, about staying away from her. But don't know.
Well,
Because at the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was right for Captain Stacy to make that request of Peter. You know, um, it wasn't his place in order for him to kind of dictate how. Yeah, because I guess it was for the wrong intention. Like I understand he wanted to protect his daughter, and ultimately, I guess this movie kind of proves him right that because of Peter Parker she ends up dying. Um, but to me, it's almost like I think the fact that he didn't like. I think if there was a realization that it was going to be a partnership between them, and it might not have shaken out the way that it did. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the right way to articulate it, but you know, it's kind of like it's almost like the whole plot of Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, where Scott tries to do things on his own in Civil War and ends up really paying the price for it, instead of not involving Hope. And so again, I think the same kind of thing where Peter should have, you know,
right. Well, there's a couple of things there. First of all, Captain Stacy,
yeah,
um, could technically put his whole family in jeopardy because
yeah,
he's a big guy.
yeah,
He's an important guy, and his family could be in danger all the time. So
right,
he's asking Peter to do what he didn't do,
right,
you know? And so he got himself into that situation.
yeah,
And then he's asking, here he is an adult who has a family
yeah,
and knows about, trying to keep his family safe.
mm-hmm.
And yet he's asking a teenager who does not have anywhere near the experience that he does to sacrifice his love. He's supposed to be a teenager, right?
Mm-hmm.
In high school. So how can you ask him to leave Gwen out of it and then he say, okay, and then find that he can't? If he
Yeah,
just let things alone, who knows if the relationship would have lasted. We know it had to last for the movie, but
yeah,
typical teenagers, no guarantee their relationships last.
yeah,
You know, it's very uncommon to find couples, even my age, that have been married for lengths of time, that married their high school sweetheart. You know, I
mm-hmm.
mean, it happens, but it's at even that is, not, it's more of a rarity. I'm going to say the generation before me, maybe that would be, something that was more common. And I think with your era relationship, I don't know how much of that would be even, an idea, right? Would you say?
Uh, well,
As far as someone that you grew up with
I
all
could,
through your life?
we can probably spend an hour talking about the relationship dynamics that happen generation to generation. Um, I don't
Well,
think
we don't want to do that.
no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, so,
Okay, well, hey,
yeah, I will reserve me opining about that until we have some actual time to do that.
okay. Well, maybe we'll do a episode on superhero couples or something, to where you can get that conversation in. I don't know.
Okay,
It's a
that's a good
it,
idea. I think we're gonna have to we'll have to make a list show coming up soon.
okay, yeah, that we could discuss that in further detail.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, is there anything else you want to talk about this particular episode?
The only other thing I'll say is the tragic character of Max Dillon, how um, you have someone who clearly is on the spectrum, and his only real friend in the world is Spider-Man, and the how it's easy for someone like that to either get taken advantage of in Max cases, and then kind of uh, take the gift that he's been given and then use that for destructive means. And so, um,
Yes, which
yeah,
did you have some deleted scenes on your Blu-ray?
probably.
Oh, you didn't check them out?
No.
Well, I did on the DVD.
Okay.
And there was a scene. You remember the scene where he was in the house and the power went out and he goes like circa 36
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever. Well, they had a deleted scene for his birthday where his mother is bedridden,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks to her and she doesn't even acknowledge his birthday. So, I mean, they really pushed him as a character.
Yeah.
I think they should have left the scene in because it was great,
Yeah.
And so, but they really, I don't know, he almost, he had a double personality after he became Electro,
Yeah.
And he loved Spider-Man. Then all of a sudden he hated him,
Mm.
because of that first confrontation.
Sure.
So, all right. Well, the only other question I had to ask you is how many times did you step out of the movie as far as like it took you out from the movie itself?
I mean, I didn't really keep track of that. I think like I said, the most.
But quite a few times, right?
Yeah, I guess more than I would expect to in a Spider-Man film.
Right. And you did make it through the whole film, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I know. Wasn't easy.
No.
Okay. Well, nothing else that you want to talk about.
No.
I'm going to say then it's time to give it a rating then.
Yep. Agreed.
And I have to say, sadly, that I'll give it a 5, average.
Okay.
Close to becoming below average. But I really loved Jamie Foxx's performance. I loved all the performances, actually.
Yeah.
And I definitely loved his version of Electro, the makeup and everything. I thought that was great.
Sure.
And you?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 6, slightly better than average, only due to the performances and the special effects. Definitely, you can tell they spent their money and got their money's worth out of that. But from a plotting and story standpoint, it does fall flat. So,
yes, really flat. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week with something new, but follow us on social media and leave us some feedback. What did you think about the film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? But we'll talk to you next week. Goodbye. God bless.
Goodbye. God bless. We'd love to hear from you.